It is one of the boldest claims in the entire Bible. On a battlefield in ancient Canaan, a man looks up at the sky and commands the sun itself to stop. And according to the text, it does. The sun halts in the middle of the sky and does not go down for about a full day. For centuries, this single passage has been a battleground of its own. Skeptics point to it as proof that the Bible cannot be trusted. Believers have defended it in a dozen different ways. And between those two camps lies a genuine puzzle, because the text is stranger and more carefully worded than most people who quote it realize. What actually happened on the day the sun stood still? Was it a cosmic miracle? A misunderstanding of ancient poetry? A solar eclipse recorded 1,000 years before any other? Today we open the case and weigh the suspects one by one. First, the scene. The book of Joshua describes the Israelites newly arrived in the Promised Land. They have made a treaty with the people of Gibeon, and when 5 Amorite kings lay siege to Gibeon in revenge, Joshua marches through the night to defend his allies. In the middle of the battle, with the enemy breaking, Joshua speaks. Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon over the valley of Aijalon. And the account continues. The sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the nation had taken vengeance on its enemies. Now, here is the first detail almost everyone misses. The text itself tells us where these words come from. It says, "Is this not written in the book of Joshua?" The book of Joshua was an ancient collection of poetry and song, quoted elsewhere in the Bible, and long since lost to history. So the most famous line in the story is not plain narration. It is a quotation from a book of poetry. And that single fact opens the first door. Our first suspect is the most familiar one, the literal reading, that the earth genuinely stopped turning, the sun frozen in the sky, time itself suspended for a day. For much of history, this was simply how the passage was understood. God made the sun and the moon, so of course God could halt them. To those who hold this view, it is a miracle, plain and total, and asking how it worked rather misses the point. But the literal reading carries enormous weight. A planet spinning at 1,000 miles an hour does not simply stop without unimaginable consequences. And so many readers, including devout ones, have wondered whether the poetry might be saying something other than what a modern literal reading assumes. Which brings our second suspect. That this was never a claim about physics at all, but a piece of victory poetry. In the ancient Near East, the movements of sun, moon, and stars were the language of triumph and doom. To say the heavens themselves fought for you was to declare a victory so complete it seemed the cosmos had taken part. And there is a sharp theological edge here. The sun and the moon were gods to Israel's enemies. To have them commanded, halted, silenced, was to say that the God of Israel ruled over the very things the other nations worshipped. Our third suspect lives inside the ancient Hebrew itself. The word translated stand still comes from a root that can also mean to be silent or to be dark. And some scholars have asked whether the original poem described not a sun that stopped, but a sun that dimmed. In 2017, researchers at Cambridge proposed exactly this. They argued the words could describe a solar eclipse and calculated that an annular eclipse, the kind that leaves a ring of fire around a black sun, was visible in Canaan on the 30th of October, 1207 BC. If they are right, this would be the oldest solar eclipse ever recorded by humankind, preserved in the book of Joshua. There is even a fourth reading, hiding in a single small word. The Hebrew preposition, usually translated until, can also mean before. On that reading, Joshua prays for the sun and moon at dawn, before the battle, not for extra daylight at all, but perhaps for the cover of a dimmed sky. A completely different event, turning on one ancient word. Each of these suspects fits some of the evidence. None of them closes the case entirely, and then there is the false lead. The story you may have heard that NASA computers, plotting the positions of the planets, once found a missing day in time and traced it back to Joshua. It is a compelling tale. It is also entirely untrue. The legend predates NASA and even predates electronic computers, traceable to a book from the 1930s. No such calculation exists, and it has been debunked repeatedly by Christian and scientific writers alike. It is a reminder that a story does not become true simply because we would like it to be. So where does that leave us? With a case that cannot be fully closed. The passage names its own source, a book of poetry we can no longer read. The suspects range from a total miracle to a battle hymn to the oldest eclipse in human record, and the evidence does not crown a clear winner. But strip the theories away, and one thing remains beyond dispute. Whatever happened in that valley, the people who preserved this account were making a single staggering claim: that the sun and the moon, worshipped as gods across the ancient world, answered to the God of Israel. The mechanism we may never recover. The meaning, they carved in words that have outlasted 3,000 years. If you would like to keep searching with us through the places where history and scripture meet, subscribe and tell us which mystery we should uncover next.